What's up, guys? It's your girl Brie. Welcome back to my channel. Thanks for tuning in. So, since my last video with this huge announcement that I'm expecting, I've really been contemplating on what I want my next video to be about. So, I decided that I wanted this video to be about something that I'm passionate about and that I'm learning to do in my own way, and that is activism. So, I'm going to share with you my activism story and where it all started for me, as well as some of the things that I have been able to do and where I am now in my activism journey. So let's get into this video. So my activism journey dates back to 2012, so about 8 years, almost 8.5 years ago, when I was in the 12th grade. And when I was in the 12th grade, I came across a story about a young man who was murdered walking home from the corner store, and found out that that young man was Trayvon Martin. And it enraged me and it frustrated me because I didn't realize that I would ever be able to see something like that in my lifetime. Not only that, but it infuriated me because I have brothers. At the time, I have brothers, I have a black father, you know, I'm black, so it infuriated me. And so my mom saw that and she introduced me to Janae Ingram, who at the time worked for the National Action Network as a Washington, D.C. bureau chief at that time. She doesn't work for Nan anymore, but she was at the time. And so shout out to her. And so I was able to talk with Janae and kind of give her a spectrum of where I was and how I was feeling. And she was able to give me some advice on how to cope and how to deal with it. And so she suggested that I attend the NAN convention and volunteer to kind of see where NAN was and where they stood. And so I did. I attended the convention, I volunteered, and that's where I met Mary Pat Hector, who at the time she was the national youth director for their youth department. And so I was able to meet her and talk with her and really interact with some other young people who felt the same way that I did. And so I joined NAN and I became a chapter president for the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area. And so when I returned to school from the convention, after everything that I had learned, I learned that I was being taught government by a racist. And one day my friends and we were talking, and I was sharing with some of the things that I had learned, sharing with them some of the things that I had learned at the convention. And we started talking about the Trayvon Martin situation. And the teacher just outright said that he deserved to die. If he was in George Zimmerman's shoes, he would have done the same thing. And I was furious. I was heated. I was hot, to say the least. And so, now granted, I don't know if he's still teaching at the high school that I attended. However, when I attended the school, even after several emails that my mom sent, he was not reprimanded or fired. So that just goes to show where people were then. But that's when I knew that I wanted to give voice to the voiceless and to be able to stand up for people who were marginalized. I guess, and kind of one of the things that really spoke to me was trying to figure out how the media was able to spin the story to make it look like George Zimmerman was the hero. And so while I was at the convention, I was able to ask the question, why is it that the media is able to portray the victim as the perpetrator and the perpetrator as the victim? And I was just given the answer of, that's just what sells. And that's just That's just how it happens. So I worked with Nan. After that initial moment, I worked with Nan for about 3.5, 4 years. And in those 4 years, I participated in the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington, where I was part of the planning, as well as I was interviewed by the Washington Post about how I felt about being a part of such a staple event or a staple moment in history as the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington, and I was really excited about that. I became the Northeast Regional Director for the youth department, so I covered chapters from Maine to Virginia. I was able to bring on several other youth activists as a part of my work with Nan. Some of them still work with Nan today. My partner who passed, David Carter, he was one of the ones that I brought along, and he stayed with Nan all the way up until he was done. And I was also able to win several awards alongside some of the most amazing people, and so that was very exhilarating for me. And so I've won an award for Region of the Year. I was on the Roots Top 25 for Youth Activists, and I was also given a Rising Star Award by the National Action Network. So I've been able to do some things working with Nan. After working with Nan, I went on to work with Melanie Campbell and the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation, where I specifically worked with their program Black Youth Vote, where their mission was to engage young people in the process of voting, be it registering people, getting out the vote, and, making pledges to vote. I was able to put together, as their civic engagement coordinator, I was able to put together the Black Youth Vote Conference in 2016, which was actually their 20th anniversary of Black Youth Vote. So we did something for that as well. And the conference was basically just bringing youth civic engagement leaders and youth activists from all across the country to be able to be trained on what some of the new voter suppression laws were, how they can help young people and motivate young people to get out to vote. And I was also able to help organize a competition amongst college and universities to have people pledge to vote as well as get them registered. And so after the 2016 election, my activism paused because I wanted to work on myself. Not only work on myself, but I was preparing for the birth of my son, and I had met my then boy. He's my husband now, but he was my boyfriend then, and so I just was ready to build my life and kind of just take a break. So I took a break, and it didn't necessarily pause, but it took a brief intermission. So, which brings me to now where it kind of picks up. So this year has definitely been trying and hard for a lot of us with all that's going on, with 2020 being an election year, with us being in the middle of a pandemic with this coronavirus, and with us being in the middle of civil unrest, with the movement for Black Lives. And so before I get into where I'm going with this, I just want to make sure that I let you guys know that being that this is an election year, I want you to know that it is very important that you go out and you exercise your right to vote, because people fought, bled, and died for this, for your right. And As the late Congressman John Lewis would say, the vote is the single most powerful, non-violent tool that we can use. So use it. Even though you may feel like it doesn't matter, trust me, it does. And make sure you vote down ballot, because not only does the presidential election matter, but you need to make sure that you vote for the people that directly affect you. So those who are in your state, who control your community. And also, sidebar, make sure you complete your census. I completed mine some months ago, but make sure you complete your census, because that's how they determine how much money they're going to put into your community. So make sure your family is accounted for sure. So also, being in the middle of a pandemic has been hard for everybody. One thing I can agree with is that we are all in this together, because we're all feeling this at the same time. Cue High School Musical. We're all in this together. Yeah, because we are. We're all in this together for sure. So during this pandemic, my life hasn't really changed. I've pretty much worked since the shutdown. So I've pretty much worked since the shutdown. Because of where I work, I'm considered an essential worker, so I haven't stopped working. Praise the Lord for that. Thank God. My husband did take a hit being laid off. However, we were able to make it through. So there haven't really been any major changes in my life, other than the fact that I became pregnant, which means that my husband and I were not social distancing. But my life pretty much hasn't really changed much. But before we move on, I want to make sure that I remind you that you make sure that you and your family are taking all of the proper precautions to stay safe, i.e. wear your mask, wash your hands. It's funny, sidebar joke, it's funny how it took a pandemic to make people do what they should have been doing in the first place, washing your hands. But make sure you do that. And make sure, if it's a requirement at your job like it is for mine, get tested. Even if you don't feel symptoms, get tested. And also, let me know in the comments below how you've been holding up during this pandemic. Have you been able to keep working? Have you not been able to keep working? Has God been sustaining you during this time? Let me know. Let me know what's going on. So, now to the recultivation and reactivation of my activism, and how I have chosen my lane, which is now using the platform that I have created via YouTube to continue my activism efforts. And even if it's just commentating on things that I've seen lately, I just want to make sure that I'm able to not only speak my truth and how I feel, but I want to make sure that I'm doing, so I'm going to I'm really going to start getting into some intense research so I can bring you some real facts and how serious it is to make sure that we change the trajectory of where we are in America. And so I want to start off by just letting you know that according to mappingpoliceviolence.org, so far, the police have killed 781 people in 2020. That's just this year. Not to mention all of the ones since like 2015. And of those 781 people, 219 of those people are African American, which is about 28% of that number. 219 is a very large number, and that is of ones that we know of, and some we don't. And that number could be a lot larger. So that's why this is so important to me. But the one murder that I feel like catapulted me back into wanting to speak how I feel, and that also put the country in civil unrest was the murder of George Floyd, who was murdered in Minneapolis, Minnesota by former police officer Derek Chauvin, who kneeled on Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Now, I'm going to say this, and I mean this with every fiber of my being. If you watched that video and you did not feel something, if you did not cry, if your heart did not feel pain for that man, something is wrong with you. And I think we have gone into civil unrest, and not only Black people, but our Caucasian brothers and sisters and our Hispanic brothers and sisters and our Latino. We have become and come into this civil unrest because the murder of George Floyd, I think, has caused everyone to question the soul and the humanity of America. Because how could you let this happen? How is it ever okay for a police officer to kneel on someone's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds and literally watch this man expire? Meanwhile, everyone around was begging and pleading for him to stop, to get up off of his neck. There was even an EMT there that was asking for them to just check his pulse. That's it. And they couldn't even do that. So that's where we are in America right now. And not only are we fighting for justice for George Floyd and the many others that have lost their lives due to police violence and gun violence in general, but we're also now fighting for the life of Breonna Taylor, who seemingly, I feel like, was put on the back burner. She was murdered before George Floyd, but nobody knew about it until it started to get media traction, because her mom was not gonna let it just go because of her experience. Breonna Taylor was a 26-year-old EMT who was murdered in her home after the Louisville Police Department executed a no-knock warrant on her home. Now, they say that they acknowledge themselves. Witnesses say that didn't happen. So it was basically, and it has basically been a he said, she said, or a back and forth. It has been 185 days since the murder of Breonna Taylor, and nobody has been arrested or reprimanded, charged. None of the officers that are responsible have been charged or reprimanded. And I want to make sure that I shout out Until Freedom and all of the other organizations who have been on the forefront in Louisville, making sure that we are keeping Breonna Taylor's name in our conversation, and that making sure that we are saying her name. Shout out to, Until Freedom, Tamika Mallory, Yandy Smith, Portia Williams, all of them who are doing the groundwork. Because let me just make sure I say this. This movement is about knowing your lane. Everybody has a different lane. My lane right now may be just commentating and telling you how I feel, and you expressing to me through the comments how you feel. And maybe that's where the dialogue starts. But that may just be my lane. Tamika Mallory's lane is being out there on the forefront, getting out there, getting arrested. You have people who are working on policies and laws to make sure that this doesn't happen again. There are lanes for every movement, and I think it's time for us all to find our lane and get in it. And so I'm choosing to make this my lane, because right now I can't be on the forefront, but I can be on the forefront making sure that I'm putting this information out here and y'all are getting this information. So I'm definitely getting ready to start doing some real research and getting some of my colleagues to come on my channel and doing some interviews with them and what they think and where they think we should go next. So make sure you click the bell for notifications so you can know about that, and you can stay tuned and hit the subscribe button while you at it. But I want to say this. I do think that it needs to be said that the allies of the Black Lives Matter movement, if you are an ally, I think that you should be creating more allies, because we know that everybody is not going to be on our team. We know that. Everybody's not going to be on our team. But it is up to us to make sure that we're spreading this information and letting them know how important these things are. Everybody's not going to be on our team. However, we must make progress and know that just because we're saying that Black Lives Matter does not mean that we don't recognize that all lives matter. However, Black lives right now are at stake. And if you can't understand that, I don't know what to tell you. But I will say this: all lives can't matter until Black lives matter, until Black women's lives matter, and any other person who is marginalized or oppressed. So until their lives matter, all lives can't matter. And the part, I guess, that saddens me is, as a mother of a Black son who's 3 years old, he's only going to get older, and the mother of a soon-to-be Black daughter, I get a lot of anxiety because of having to have that talk with them. Back in the day, when we would be in school, they'd be like, your parents had to talk with you. But the talk was about the birds and the bees, about the next phase of life. Now the talk has become what you are to do when you step out of the door and you encounter a police officer. How you are supposed to act. I even get scared at the fact to be able to have to tell my son and daughter, like, comply. Because we've seen time and time again that even if you do comply, complying does not always mean that you make it out alive. So I get a lot of anxiety about having that conversation. So what I want you to do is let me know in the comments if you've had that conversation with your children. Give me some ideas of how I can do it, because I get extreme anxiety when it comes to that. And just let me know how you're feeling about everything that's, just going on in the world today, because it is a lot going on. And as I said, we're all in this together from High School Musical, because we are. And we have to stand in that. And I also just want to make this statement. You teach people how to treat you. So to my Black brothers and sisters, I'm not saying that, trust me when I say I'm not saying that this is our fault. However, we have to own our part in it, in the fact that when we don't value ourselves and each other, when we don't protect ourselves and each other, we can't, if we're not at that standard, we can't expect for someone else to uphold that standard if we're not upholding it ourselves? So if we're not protecting each other and protecting our black women and going to bat for our black women, and we're, you know, if we're not doing that, if we're treating each other like we're disposable and expendable, trust and believe they're gonna do the same. So it is up to us to make sure that we're teaching them how to treat us, and that means us coming together and us being a part of the solution. So I know this video has been and is heavy. However, these topics need to be talked about. They need to be discussed, because if they're not, we'll keep sweeping it under the rug, and America will still be in a state of civil unrest, and we will never know the soul of America if we do not move this country forward by exercising our right to vote, participating in our census, and making sure that we are doing everything that we can to prevent these things from happening. Prevent certain things from happening. So I know it's heavy, but these topics need to be talked about. But before I close out this video, I want to let you guys know, on a lighter note, that I am now a brand ambassador for a brand, and a brand called the Little Stewart Store. And it's an amazing store where you can get a lot of cute things for moms to be, mom and baby. You can do photo shoots, things for photo shoots, things for baby's nursery, things for your toddlers, and so much more. Now, I've ordered a couple of items from the store, and I'm currently waiting on my products, but trust and believe, as soon as I get them, you will be the first to see them. I'll be doing a video opening them and giving you my reaction to what I have purchased. But until then, I want you to check out their website, www.lilstewart.com, and check out what they have. Not only do I want you to check out what they have, but I want you to purchase something, and I will make sure to link the store and put my discount code in the description box below. And when you use my code BriesWorld20, you will get 20% off your entire purchase. So make sure you check them out. That's www.lilstewart.com, and use my code BriesWorld20 to get 20% off your entire purchase. Once again, I will link their website and my description and my discount code in the description box below. So now I want to thank you for watching this video, and thank you for tuning in to the end. Once again, I want to make sure that you check out Lil Stewart Store and use my discount code for your purchase. And like I said, it will be linked in the description box below. And like I said, let me know in the comments how you've been doing during this pandemic, and let me know what you think about my activism story and where you are in your activism journey and what you've been feeling, because I know it can be a lot, and anxiety can take over, and once anxiety takes over, it can make you sick, and we don't want that. So communicate with me so I can communicate with you, and we can communicate and get through this together. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Make sure you click the bell for notifications, because like I said, the content is gonna keep coming. So make sure you are in the loop. And as always, I love you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.